Thomas and Timothy and Titus become partners in the ministry of evangelization of St. Paul. St. Paul, of course, is preaching Jesus, and he's sent out, and his celebration, we only celebrated yesterday, the conversion of St. Paul. So when he was converted, when he was called to be an apostle, he was called by Jesus himself, who had died and resurrected. So that's very unique for Paul, for any saint, to have Christ appear to them after his resurrection. And of course, we know that happened after the resurrection, on the early days of the resurrection by the apostles and so on. But as he goes on, Paul is a real pastor. He goes to places and appoints people and leaders to continue the evangelization. And he becomes personal with some of them. Over the weekend, I baptized little Lucas. Lucas is the grandson of Nancy. Nancy and Lena, the sisters, made all my vestments when I was at the William Patterson Chapel, Jesus Christ, Prince of Peace Chapel. One day I had a string hanging from one vestment, and they have heavy, thick Sicilian accents. And I said to someone, after Mass, I said, can someone take this vestment and get rid of this string and sew it? And she sat in the first row because she was there for her daughter's confirmation preparation, RCIA. And she says, I'll do it. And lo and behold, that began their ministry to the chapel and me personally. But also, this is just one family. Also, through Yolanda, we got to know the family. And through the family, we got to know the cousin. And this was the cousin's baby that was baptized this past week. I baptized the baby's brothers years ago. I married Yolanda, and I've been at the confirmations of so many, and in May I'll be at the first communion of Jeremy. So I'm saying that because it shows how a priest, a minister, gets involved with ministry and gets involved with people and knows their names. And we greet each other here. We know little stories about each other, sometimes where you're from and so on. And that's part of the ministry, just being, I don't want to say friendly, because it is being friendly, but it's more so. It's being friendly in the Lord. And Paul talks about the people that he knew, relatives of Timothy, his grandmother Lois, his mother Eunice. And they were women who probably had what we call domestic churches. Their homes opened up to the ministers of the word, and they would have what we call mass there in their homes. That was the early church. That's how they started. And Paul made a contact with them. So he's writing to Timothy about his relatives and about how he, through them, spread the church, spread the word, spread the gospel. It's very important. It still continues. It still continues today. What you do when you leave here is very important, because all of us are meant to minister the word to others, to bring the word of God to others, through our actions, through our invitations, through our prayer. Only a few minutes ago, I tried to draft someone to start a choir here because we heavily lack music here. And she's debating. She just joined a Polish choir, but we need one here too. So we'll see what happens. But that's how it grows. That's how the church grows. Um, yes, in certain parishes, people are given stipends or paid for their ministry, administrators and maybe sextons and people who clean and so on, and sometimes even music. But that's an advance as to how the church has become an outreach to all people, and sometimes gets involved with business kind of stuff, and that's necessary. Paul had no idea that was going to happen, but that's necessary. When we were in Rome earlier this month, the thousands of people that were at the funeral of Benedict, the thousands of people who were at the vespers, or the audience with the Pope, Pope Francis. And along the sidelines, hundreds of Swiss guards, bodyguards, police keeping order. And so you think about that and how it just magnifies the ministry. And sometimes we have to act like a business, but nothing wrong with that. It's how to organize and bring ourselves together as a church. Paul did it in the beginning. When he left, he appointed Timothy and Titus bishops. What was a bishop? Head of the community, basically, and successors of the apostles. He appointed them bishops so they could organize their diocese. They didn't call them dioceses then. Organize their local churches and encourage other people to join. So I'll talk about volunteerism. Volunteerism in our church is unbelievably important. Unbelievably important. And no one is less than another person. You know I sing poorly, but I try. So if there are people who sing, invite them. You know, and there's power in numbers. So a choir is a bunch of people who can't sing individually, but can sing as a choir, as a group. And that goes on for other ministries. You know, Gunther, how he organizes things next door, like after mass breakfast. And certain times he helped with the presenting the nativity before Christmas. But volunteers are very important. I mean, the church started with that. And Jesus in his ministry in the gospel today tells us, you know, go out and preach the word. If they welcome you and they give you food, sit and eat with them. And after you finished, leave and wish them peace. That was early ministry and volunteerism. So we see how the church is very historical and practical at the same time, but yet the source of the church, the heart of the church, is always Jesus Christ. He is the person that we are serving when we sing, when we read, when we take collections and clean. It doesn't matter what we do in the body of the church, we're honoring Jesus Christ. Today we honor two early, they weren't apostles, but they were appointed, they were bishops, and they were our ancestors, Timothy and Titus.